Nancy Pelosi walked onto the Fox News stage, believing that her 37 years in Congress would be sufficient to intimidate a former reality TV star, but she was about to discover why Donald Trump constructed skyscrapers in Manhattan while she presided over the transformation of San Francisco into America's most prominent outdoor sanitation crisis. The billionaire arrived armed with receipts, not merely talking points or vague accusations, but actual documented evidence meticulously compiled over months of preparation, including stock trading records pulled from public disclosures that detailed Paul Pelosi's suspiciously timed trades with specific dates, amounts, and legislative correlations. He presented professional photographs of her $25 million Pacific Heights mansion, contrasted starkly with images of homeless encampments located just 3 blocks away, alongside aerial shots of her Napa Valley Vineyard estate worth millions more. Security footage that had gone viral, showing her illicit salon visit during the COVID lockdown when salons were forced to close across California, was ready for display, as were congressional records and Pentagon confirmations, proving she rejected Trump's offer of 20,000 National Guard troops prior to January 6th. City of San Francisco data, revealing 28,000 human feces reports filed through their official mobile app in a single year, was included, along with financial disclosure forms demonstrating how a career earning $174,000 annually had somehow accumulated $250 million in wealth. Timeline documents illustrated the exact correlation between Paul Pelosi's stock purchases and Nancy Pelosi's legislative actions. Trump had spent weeks collaborating with his team to organize all of this material, not because he strictly needed to, as the evidence was already public, but because he understood the immense power of presentation. Each piece of evidence was prepared for maximum visual impact on the massive screens Fox would provide, featuring charts showing Paul's trading profits over time, side-by-side comparisons of San Francisco in 1987, when she took office versus 2024, a literal map of human feces reports across her district, and a video compilation of her COVID hypocrisy, all designed to be instantly understandable, undeniable, and devastating. More importantly, Trump understood something about Nancy Pelosi that his team had confirmed through opposition research. She was fundamentally unprepared to defend her wealth accumulation because for decades, friendly media had never pressed her on it. No moderator had ever put Paul's stock trades on screen and demanded she explain the timing, nor had anyone forced her to reconcile her luxury lifestyle with her district's decline. She had been protected by institutional deference and media allies who considered such questions unseemly or mere Republican talking points. Trump was about to make it very seemly, very public, very documented, and exceedingly uncomfortable for someone who had spent nearly 4 decades lecturing others about greed and inequality. Pelosi thought this would be a dignified discussion about leadership and service, but Trump brought evidence of the largest insider trading operation ever run from the Speaker's office. For 90 minutes live on television, America would finally see the receipts on how career politicians amass immense wealth while their cities deteriorate, and they lecture everyone else about inequality. If you have ever wondered how someone making $174,000 a year becomes worth $250 million, you are about to find out. And if you thought Trump was tough on Twitter, wait until you see what he does with Nancy's stock trading records on live TV. Her husband's Visa purchase alone is worth the price of admission. The Fox News studio in Midtown Manhattan was packed with 600 people, the network's largest audience setup for any program that year, with the crowd split predictably between Trump supporters in their red MAGA hats, occupying most of the seats, and a determined contingent of Pelosi supporters clustered in one corner, wearing Madam Speaker shirts and looking distinctly uncomfortable in hostile territory. The stage design was pure confrontation, featuring two podiums facing each other at aggressive angles, massive screens ready to display evidence, and Sean Hannity at the moderator's desk, looking like a man who knew he was about to witness either the greatest debate or the greatest bloodbath in cable news history, and probably both. Nancy Pelosi arrived first to polite applause from her section and immediate boos from the Trump crowd. At 84 years old, she wore one of her signature expensive pantsuits, this one likely costing more than most Americans make in a month, and carried herself with the imperious dignity of someone who had wielded the speaker's gavel for years. She was prepared to lecture Trump about institutional norms, democratic values, and the sanctity of public service. Having memorized talking points about his failures and crimes, believing her experience and gravitas would overwhelm his bombast. She had absolutely no idea what was coming. Donald Trump walked out 3 minutes later to a roar that shook the building, with applause, cheers, and chants lasting nearly 3 full minutes, featuring cries of Trump, 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 mixed with USA, 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 forcing Sean Hannity to gesture repeatedly for quiet. Trump wore his signature dark suit and red tie, waved to the crowd with those sweeping arm gestures his supporters loved, and walked to his podium, carrying something Nancy immediately noticed with concern: a thick folder of documents, which he set down with a heavy thud, audible through his microphone. Her confident smile wavered, as Trump with prepared materials was never good news for his opponents. Sean Hannity began his introduction about the importance of examining leadership styles and qualifications, reminding everyone this was about substance, not personal attacks, a reminder that would last approximately 30 seconds. "Madam Speaker," Sean began, "your opening statement." Pelosi launched into her prepared remarks in that slow, deliberate cadence she used when trying to sound authoritative. "Thank you, Sean. The American people deserve leadership that understands duty, honor, and service. I have spent 37 years in Congress fighting for working families, protecting our democracy, and upholding the Constitution." She turned to look at Trump with barely concealed contempt. "Mr. Trump has spent his career enriching himself at others' expense. He bankrupted casinos. He cheated contractors. He faces multiple indictments. He is a criminal who attacked our Capitol and tried to overthrow our democracy. He represents everything wrong with America: greed, dishonesty, and contempt for the rule of law." Her supporters applauded, and she sat back with satisfaction, thinking she had landed the opening blow. Trump smiled. Not a friendly smile, but the smile of a Queens businessman who just heard someone stupid try to bluff. "Nancy," he began, and you could hear the sarcasm dripping from every syllable. "You've been in Congress for 37 years. 37 years. You started making $44,600 a year. Now you make $174,000. But somehow, you're worth $250 million. How does that work? Can you explain that to us?" He didn't wait for her to answer. "Because I built businesses. I built towers. I created jobs, tens of thousands of jobs. I made billions. But I made it in the private sector. I actually built things." Trump pulled out his first document and held it up. You got rich? Off insider trading? You and your husband Paul making millions on stock trades that just happen to coincide perfectly with legislation you're working on? That's not building. That's stealing." The Trump section erupted. Pelosi's face flushed red. When a billionaire calls you corrupt, it stings. But when he's holding your stock trades in his hand, it's devastating. Trump didn't give her time to respond. He was already pulling out documents and having them displayed on the massive screens. "Let's talk about Visa, because this one is just beautiful, just incredible corruption." He held up a timeline. March 2008. Visa is about to go public. There's legislation in Congress that could hurt credit card companies. Bad legislation could cost them billions. Trump displayed the bill details on screen. Your husband, Paul, good old Paul, he buys $1 million to $5 million in Visa stock right before the IPO. Very interesting timing. He pulled out more documents. Then, what happens? The legislation dies in committee? Just dies. Never goes anywhere. And Visa stock? Boom, skyrockets. Paul makes millions. Millions. Trump spread his arms wide. Now, I'm just a simple billionaire from Queens, but that seems like insider trading to me. You knew the legislation was going to die. You probably killed it yourself. And Paul made millions. Pelosi tried to respond, my husband's investments are disclosed. And disclosed. Disclosed. Trump's voice rose. Nancy, disclosure doesn't make it legal. It just means we can all see the corruption. That's not transparency. That's bragging. He pulled out more stock trades, displaying them on the screens one by one. Tesla. Paul buys $5 million in Tesla stock. 2 months later, you pass subsidies for electric vehicles. Tesla stock goes up. Paul profits. Google buys stock right before antitrust legislation gets watered down. Apple buys right before favorable tax treatment. Amazon buys before you block regulations. Microsoft buys before government contracts. Trump was pacing now, voice getting louder. Every single trade happens right before legislation that affects that company. And it always goes Paul's way. It's like he's psychic, like he can see the future. He turned to the audience with exaggerated wonder. Or maybe he's married to the Speaker of the House. Who knows what legislation is coming and tips him off so he can make millions. You think that could be it? The audience roared with laughter and applause. Trump pulled out more evidence. In 2021 alone, Paul made $62 million on stock options. $62 million. While you're making $174,000 a year and lecturing Americans about income inequality. He shook his head in mocked disbelief. And you know the really corrupt part? When Republicans tried to ban members of Congress from trading stocks, you blocked it. You blocked it because you're making too much money. Trump pointed at her accusingly. You're running the biggest insider trading operation in American history out of the Speaker's office. You're using classified briefings and legislative knowledge to get rich. That's not public service, Nancy. That's theft. His final line was delivered with perfect Trump timing. I made billions building things. You made millions stealing with insider information. And you want to call me corrupt? Give me a break. Paul Pelosi made $62 million on options while she blocked the stock trading ban. Comment insider trading if you see the scam. Trump grabbed another folder, this one with photos attached to the cover. Now let's talk about your district. Beautiful San Francisco. You've represented it for 37 years, so let's see what you've accomplished. Nothing says failed leadership like human feces. Maps of your own city. He displayed photos on the screens. Not just any photos, but devastating images of homeless encampments, people shooting drugs on sidewalks, and human feces on expensive streets. This is San Francisco today, the city you've represented since 1987. 37 years of Nancy Pelosi. Look at it. More photos appeared showing downtown streets covered in tents, businesses boarded up with graffiti, and needles scattered on playgrounds. San Francisco has the highest homeless rate per capita in America. They literally have an app where people report human feces on the streets. Over 28,000 reports last year. In one city, Trump pulled out statistics. Property crime is up 31%. Car break-ins are so common that tourists are warned not to leave anything in their vehicles. Retail stores are leaving because of theft. Walgreens closed 17 stores because people just walk out with merchandise and nobody stops them. He looked at Pelosi with genuine disgust. This is your legacy. This is what 37 years of Nancy Pelosi looks like. A city drowning in human shit and drug needles while you live in your $25 million mansion in Pacific Heights behind walls and armed security. Pelosi tried to defend. San Francisco faces challenges that require. Challenges. Challenges. Trump exploded. Nancy, people are stepping over human feces to get to work. That's not a challenge. That's a disaster. That's a failure. He pulled out more evidence. The middle class is fleeing. Can't afford it. Median home price, $1.4 million. Average rent, $3,500 a month. Families are leaving. Small businesses are closing. The city is dying. Trump displayed census data showing population decline. But you live great. $25 million mansion. Napa Valley Vineyard. Private security. You're doing fine, while the people you represent are stepping over homeless people and feces. He walked toward her podium. You know what I did? I built Manhattan. I took empty lots and built skyscrapers. I created jobs. I made the city better. What did you do? You took a beautiful city and turned it into a toilet. Trump's voice dripped with contempt. 37 years. That's how long you've had to fix this. But you didn't fix it. You made it worse. Because you don't care. You don't live where the problems are. You live behind walls in Pacific Heights with armed guards. He pulled out photos of her mansion. This is your house. $25 million. Look at it. Walls. Security. Gated. Safe. Meanwhile, a mile away, people are living in tents and defecating on the street. His final assessment was brutal. San Francisco is your legacy, Nancy, and it's a disaster. 37 years of failure, human feces on the streets, drug needles everywhere, crime skyrocketing, businesses leaving. That's what Nancy Pelosi delivers. 37 years representing SF City has apt to report human feces. She lives in 25 million mansion share, if you see the disconnect. Trump was on a roll. He pulled out his next prepared section with visible glee. Now, let's talk about COVID, because this is where your hypocrisy really shines. Marie Antoinette had nothing on Pelosi showing off ice cream during a pandemic, April 2020. Middle of the pandemic. Americans are locked down. Small businesses are dying. People can't work. They're scared. They're struggling. Trump paused for effect. And you go on TV and give a tour of your kitchen. Show off your $24,000 refrigerator. $24,000 for a fridge full of gourmet ice cream. Jenny's ice cream, $12 a pint. He played the clip. There was Nancy in her mansion kitchen, opening her massive Sub-Zero refrigerator, showing off her expensive ice cream collection while Americans were losing their jobs and businesses. The audience booed loudly. Even some Pelosi supporters looked uncomfortable. People are losing everything, and you're showing off your luxury appliances and gourmet ice cream. Do you know how out of touch that is? Do you even care? Trump pulled out more evidence of her COVID hypocrisy. But wait, it gets better. You shut down salons all across California, forced them closed, destroy their businesses. Then you go to a salon yourself. Get your hair done. No mask. Breaking your own rules. He played the footage Pelosi in the salon, walking around without a mask, getting her hair washed, while salons across the state were forced to stay closed. And you know what you said when you got caught? It was a setup. A setup. You blamed the salon owner, the woman whose business you destroyed with your lockdowns. Trump was pacing, voice rising. You shut down salons, then went to one yourself. You told everyone to mask up, then walked around without a mask. You destroyed small businesses with lockdowns while you lived in luxury. He pulled out more examples. February 2020. Early pandemic. You told people to come to Chinatown. Come visit. You said no social distancing, no masks, encouraging crowds. Then 3 weeks later, you're promoting lockdowns. Trump displayed the video of Pelosi in Chinatown, encouraging people to visit, Hugging people, no precautions. You promoted lockdowns for everyone else, while you went to salons, showed off your ice cream, and lived behind your walls. Rules for thee, but not for me. He looked directly at her. Small business owners in your district lost everything. Everything. Their dreams destroyed by lockdowns you promoted. And you're showing off your $24,000 refrigerator full of $12 ice cream. Trump's voice became quieter, but more cutting. You know what I did during COVID. I cut through red tape. I got vaccines developed in 9 months. Operation Warp Speed. I saved millions of lives. What did you do? You ate ice cream and got illegal haircuts. His final line was devastating. You destroyed small businesses with lockdowns, then broke your own rules. You showed off luxury while people suffered. You're not a public servant, Nancy. You're a hypocrite with a $24,000 refrigerator, 24K fridge, $12, ice cream, illegal haircut. During lockdown, small businesses destroyed comment. If you remember, Trump grabbed another folder. This one, he'd clearly been saving. Let's talk about January 6th. Since you love blaming me for it, let's talk about your role. When the Speaker blames you for security, she controlled bring the receipts. As Speaker of the House, you're responsible for Capitol security. True or false, Pelosi tried to deflect. The Capitol Police operate under true or false. As Speaker, you're responsible for Capitol security. She couldn't deny basic facts. The Speaker has certain oversight. Yes, you're responsible. Now, on January 3rd, 3 days before January 6th, I authorized 20,000 National Guard troops to protect the Capitol. 20,000. I offered them to you. Trump pulled out the authorization documents. The Pentagon confirmed this. The National Guard commander confirmed this. I said, take them. Use them. Protect the Capitol. And you said, no. He displayed the timeline on screen. January 3rd. Trump authorizes 20,000 National Guard troops. January 4th, Pelosi's office rejects the offer. January 5th, Capitol Police request additional support. Denied. January 6th, Capitol breached with inadequate security. You rejected the troops. The Capitol Police requested more security multiple times. You said no. Why? Because you didn't want Trump's National Guard there. You made a political decision that left the Capitol vulnerable. Pelosi tried to interrupt. That's not how. Then what happened? January 6th. The Capitol gets breached. And who do you blame? Me. You blame me. But you rejected the security. You left the Capitol vulnerable. Trump was shouting now. You spent 2 years on the January 6th committee. 2 years. Millions of taxpayer dollars. But you didn't investigate your own role. You didn't testify about rejecting National Guard troops. You didn't explain why you left the Capitol unprotected. He pulled out more evidence. And you know what you did at the end? You destroyed evidence. The committee deleted records before Republicans could review them. Phone records from January 6th. Gone. Text messages. Gone. Why? What are you hiding? Trump pointed at her accusingly. I offered 20,000 troops. You said no. The Capitol Police asked for help. You said no. Then, when the Capitol got breached because of your security failures, you blamed me and hid the evidence. He walked toward her. You run the January 6th committee investigating January 6th, but you don't investigate yourself. You don't testify about your role in the security failures. That's not oversight. That's a cover-up. His voice rose to a crescendo. You rejected National Guard troops for political reasons. You left the Capitol vulnerable. Then you blamed me and destroyed evidence of your own failures. Trump's final line was delivered with maximum force. January 6th happened because of your security failures, Nancy, not mine. You rejected the troops. You denied Capitol Police support. Then you covered it up and blamed me. That's not leadership. That's dereliction of duty. Trump offered 20K troops. She rejected them. Capitol Police denied support. Then she blamed him. Share the truth. Trump moved to his next attack without giving Pelosi time to recover. Now let's talk about your impeachment obsession. Because you've spent more time trying to impeach me than actually governing. She impeached him twice and accomplished nothing except proving it was all political theater. You impeached me twice. Twice. No president in history had ever been impeached twice. But Nancy Pelosi did it. Trump held up the impeachment articles. First impeachment. Ukraine phone call. I asked about corruption, about Hunter Biden and Burisma, and you impeached me for it. Abuse of power, you said. Obstruction of Congress. He pulled out the Senate vote results. The Senate acquitted me. Republicans voted 52 to 48 against conviction. Even Mitt Romney only voted guilty on one count. It was a partisan joke. Trump pulled out more documents. Second impeachment. January 6th. You impeached me for incitement, but I said peacefully and patriotically. I offered National Guard troops. But you impeached me anyway. He displayed the acquittal vote. 57 to 43. Again acquitted. 7 Republicans voted against me, but 43 stood firm because it was political theater. Trump was building momentum. You wasted millions of taxpayer dollars. Millions. 2 impeachments, hundreds of hours of testimony, all to attack me politically, not because I committed crimes. I was acquitted both times, but because you hate me. He pulled out the kicker video of Pelosi ripping up his State of the Union speech. The clip played on every screen. Nancy Pelosi standing behind Trump at the State of the Union, dramatically ripping up his speech on national television. You ripped up my State of the Union speech on live TV in front of the world. That's not oversight. That's not dignity. That's petty hatred. Trump pointed at the screen. That speech talked about job creation, about the economy, about helping families, and you ripped it up. You disrespected the office. You disrespected the country. He turned back to her. You talk about norms and dignity and institutional respect, but you impeached me twice without real crimes and ripped up my speech on national television. Trump's voice dripped with contempt. You didn't impeach me because I broke the law. The Senate acquitted me twice. You impeached me because you couldn't beat me. You couldn't handle that I won, that I was in the White House, and you couldn't control me. His final assessment was brutal. 2 impeachments, 2 acquittals, millions wasted, speech ripped up on TV. That's not leadership, Nancy. That's obsession. That's hatred. That's putting politics before country. Impeached twice, acquitted twice, ripped up State of Union speech, pure partisan hatred comment, if you remember. Trump grabbed his final prepared folder before the climax. One more thing. Let's talk about walls and security. Your massive hypocrisy on this. Politicians who live behind walls, telling Americans, walls don't work is peak corruption. You live behind walls, Nancy. Your mansion in Pacific Heights. Walls. Gated. Private security. Armed guards 247. You're protected by all of it. Trump displayed photos of her property, high walls, security gates, camera systems. Your Napa vineyard. Same thing. Walls. Security. Gated. Safe. You're completely protected. He pulled out more evidence. Congress. The Capitol building. Walls. Fencing. Armed security. Capitol Police. You have layers of protection. Trump spread his arms wide. But when I wanted to build a wall on our southern border to protect America, you said no. Walls don't work. You said walls are immoral. You said, he played clips of Pelosi calling border walls immoral and ineffective. You live behind walls. You work behind walls. But you tell Americans they can't have walls to protect the border. Trump was pacing now, building intensity. You say ICE should be abolished. Our immigration enforcement abolished. But you have armed security. You have Capitol Police. You're protected 247. But Americans don't deserve border security. He pulled out border crime statistics. Fentanyl is pouring across the border, killing 100,000 Americans a year. Human trafficking, drug cartels, criminal gangs. But you block border security while you live behind walls with armed guards. Trump pointed at her accusingly. You're protected by everything you deny to Americans. Walls work for you. Armed security works for you. But the border. No walls. No security. Americans just have to suffer. His voice rose to a shout. That's not just hypocrisy. That's contempt. You protect yourself while leaving Americans vulnerable. You have walls and security while you let the border be overrun. Trump's final line was delivered with maximum contempt. You live like a queen behind walls and armed guards, while you tell Americans that walls are immoral and borders are racist. You're protected by everything you deny to the people you're supposed to serve. That's not public service. That's elitism. That's let them eat ice cream. Lives behind walls and armed security says border walls are immoral share, if you see the hypocrisy. Sean Hannity tried to move to closing statements, but Trump held up his hand. Actually, Sean, I want to make something very clear before we finish, because I think the American people need to understand who Nancy Pelosi really is. He stood up from his podium and walked to center stage, leaving his stack of folders behind as evidence. I'm a billionaire. I built a real estate empire. I built towers in Manhattan, Chicago, Las Vegas. I created thousands of jobs. I made billions, but I made it in the private sector. I built things, real things that people can see. He pointed at Pelosi. You've been in government for 37 years making a government salary, started at $44,600, now making $174,000. But somehow, you're worth $250 million. Trump let that number hang in the air. Let me tell you how that happened, because Americans deserve to know. He began his comprehensive indictment. You and your husband ran the biggest insider trading operation ever seen. Paul made $62 million in 1 year on stock options. Every trade timed perfectly with legislation you controlled. Visa, Tesla, Apple, Google, Amazon, all of it. When Republicans tried to ban congressional stock trading, you blocked it because you were making too much money. You represented San Francisco for 37 years. The city became the homeless capital of America. Human feces on the streets. Drug needles everywhere. 28,000 poop reports in 1 year. Crime skyrocketing. Businesses leaving. But you live in a $25 million mansion behind walls and armed security. You don't live with the failure. You live with the luxury. During COVID, you showed off your $24,000 refrigerator full of $12 ice cream while small businesses died. You shut down salons, then got an illegal haircut. You promoted lockdowns, then broke your own rules. While Americans suffered, you ate gourmet ice cream in your mansion. You were responsible for Capitol security on January 6th. I offered 20,000 National Guard troops. You rejected them. Capitol Police asked for more support. You denied it. Then, when the Capitol got breached because of your security failures, you blamed me and destroyed evidence. You impeached me twice. Both times I was acquitted. You wasted millions of taxpayer dollars on partisan attacks. You ripped up my State of the Union speech on live television. Pure hatred. Pure politics. You live behind walls and armed guards, but say border walls are immoral. You have 247 security, but say ICE should be abolished. You're protected by everything you deny to Americans. Trump walked back toward his podium, then turned for his final statement. Every single thing I've said tonight is documented. Stock trading records, photos of San Francisco, video of your ice cream tour, security authorization for National Guard. Impeachment votes. Photos of your walled mansion. All facts. All proven. His voice became harder. You're not a public servant, Nancy. You're a corrupt career politician who got rich off insider trading while your city turned into a disaster. You live in luxury while lecturing Americans about inequality. You have walls and security while denying it to the border. You broke your own COVID rules while destroying small businesses. Trump spread his arms to encompass the audience. I made billions building things. You made millions through insider trading and corruption. I created jobs. You destroyed a city. I protected America. You rejected security, then blamed me. He pointed directly at her for his final line. You spent 37 years in Congress and got rich, while San Francisco became covered in human feces. That's your legacy. That's Nancy Pelosi. And tonight, with these receipts, I've proven it. The audience erupted into the longest standing ovation of the night. Over 4 minutes of Trump. Trump mixed with "lock her up." Pelosi sat frozen at her podium, unable to mount an effective defense against documented evidence of her wealth, her husband's trades, her city's decline, and her luxury lifestyle. The video exploded across every platform with a velocity that stunned political observers. Within 2 hours, 31 million views. Within 24 hours, 103 million views. Within 1 week, 178 million views. One of the most watched political confrontations in television history. Pelosi insider trading became the #1 trending topic on Twitter within minutes and stayed there for 5 straight days. San Francisco poop map trended simultaneously. 24K refrigerator became a meme. Conservative social media exploded with clips, particularly the segment about Paul Pelosi's Visa stock purchase. Fox News played the full debate 4 times in the first 48 hours, then created a special 2-hour documentary program titled The Pelosi Files: A Deep Dive into Wealth and Corruption that aired in prime time and became the network's highest-rated special of the year. The documentary went beyond what Trump had presented in the debate, bringing in forensic accountants to analyze the Pelosi trading patterns, ethics experts to explain why the timing suggested insider knowledge, and San Francisco residents to describe living in the city she'd represented for nearly 4 decades. Newsmax ran the debate on continuous loop for a week, with their hosts spending hours breaking down each segment, verifying each claim, and adding additional context that made Trump's attacks even more damaging. Conservative podcasters devoted entire weeks to the debate. Ben Shapiro did a 5-part series analyzing the evidence Trump had presented, confirming through his own research that the stock trading timeline was even worse than Trump had shown. There were dozens more suspiciously timed trades beyond the ones featured in the debate. Dan Bongino's podcast episode about the debate was downloaded 38 million times in the first week. Charlie Kirk made it required viewing for Turning Point USA events. Every conservative media personality with an audience used clips from the debate to illustrate their own points about Democratic corruption and hypocrisy. The stock trading segments went viral in ways political debate clips rarely do. TikTok users created duets showing Trump explaining the Visa trade while displaying their own experiences with credit card debt. Instagram pages focusing on personal finance shared clips about the $62 million in options trading, using it as an example of how the wealthy play a different game. Even liberal-leaning social media users shared the segments, not to defend Pelosi, but to argue that all congressional stock trading should be banned. The evidence was so clear, the timing so obvious, that even people who hated Trump found themselves nodding along to his explanation of the corruption. But what truly shocked political observers was that mainstream media couldn't completely ignore or dismiss what had happened. The viewership numbers were too massive. 178 million views meant this had penetrated far beyond the conservative echo chamber into general public consciousness. CNN was forced to address the debate extensively, though their coverage was defensive and focused on contextualizing Pelosi's actions. Their panels tried to explain away the stock trades as legal, technically true and disclosed, which Trump had mocked as making corruption transparent rather than stopping it. But even CNN's own analysts, when pressed by hosts, had to acknowledge the appearance of impropriety was severe and the timing suspicious. Anderson Cooper did an interview with Pelosi specifically about the debate, and it became one of the most viewed segments of the year, not because it helped her, but because it made things worse. When Cooper asked directly, "Can you explain how your husband's trade timing always seems to benefit from legislation you're working on?" Pelosi gave a rambling answer about how Paul makes his own investment decisions, and these are properly disclosed. That satisfied absolutely no one. The clip of her evasive response got more views than segments from the original debate, with even liberal commentators noting she'd failed to actually address the question. MSNBC tried more aggressive defense, with Rachel Maddow doing a segment attempting to contextualize the San Francisco criticism as right-wing attacks on urban America and arguing that homelessness was a national problem, but the segment backfired when she tried to show her own footage of San Francisco to counter Trump's narrative and accidentally proved his point. Her own camera crew captured tents, needles, and visible feces on expensive streets. The segment became a viral clip titled, "Rachel Maddow Accidentally Proves Trump Right About San Francisco." The New York Times published what was clearly intended as a defense piece titled, "The Complicated Reality of Congressional Stock Trading." But the article had to acknowledge uncomfortable facts. Yes, Paul Pelosi made extraordinary returns. Yes, the timing correlated with his wife's legislative activity. Yes, Nancy Pelosi had blocked efforts to ban congressional trading. The piece included extensive context about legal disclosure requirements and quoted ethicists who found no provable illegality, but the core facts Trump had cited remained undeniable and damning in their implications. The Washington Post's fact-checking team did a comprehensive review of Trump's claims and found themselves in an awkward position. They rated his claim about the visa trade timing as true, his description of San Francisco's feces problem as true, though they noted it was declining from peak numbers, his statement about the $24,000 refrigerator as true, and his claim about offering National Guard troops as true, but lacking context. Even when they tried to add context defending Pelosi, the underlying facts Trump had cited checked out. Conservative media seized on the fact-check as vindication, noting that even the Washington Post couldn't dispute the evidence. The stock trading scandal gained serious legislative traction in ways that previous attempts at reform never had. Pelosi had successfully blocked or watered down every previous effort to ban congressional stock trading using her position as Speaker to keep such bills from reaching votes, but after the debate made the corruption so visible and undeniable pressure became overwhelming. Congress members from both parties, but especially vulnerable Democrats in swing districts, faced constituent outrage about the obvious conflicts of interest. Town halls across the country featured angry voters demanding their representatives support trading bans and explain their own trading records. Within 2 weeks of the debate, over 120 House members from both parties co-sponsored legislation to ban stock trading by Congress members and their immediate family. Several Democratic senators who'd previously been quiet about the issue suddenly became vocal supporters of reform, clearly not wanting to be associated with what looked like the corruption Trump had exposed. Even members who'd opposed previous reform efforts suddenly found themselves supporting bans after seeing their poll numbers drop in the debate's aftermath. San Francisco became a national embarrassment for Democrats in ways that went far beyond typical partisan criticism. The debate made the city's decline impossible to ignore or spin. Moderate Democrats running in swing districts across the country began explicitly criticizing San Francisco's policies and distancing themselves from Pelosi's record. Campaign consultants advised Democratic candidates to never defend San Francisco and to acknowledge the city's problems while blaming local officials. The city became such toxic political territory that even California Democrats running statewide started proposing tough-on-crime policies and criticizing the permissive approach that had created the conditions Trump had showcased. San Francisco's mayor faced recall pressure. District Attorney Chesa Boudin had already been recalled in 2022, but renewed efforts emerged to recall other officials associated with the policies that had led to the city's decline. Tourism numbers, already down post-COVID, continued falling as the debate clips circulated globally, showing human feces on streets near expensive restaurants. Major conventions began choosing other cities, citing safety and cleanliness concerns. The city's Chamber of Commerce released a statement, acknowledging serious challenges that needed addressing. Political speak for admitting Trump was right. Pelosi herself went into damage control mode, but every attempt seemed to make things worse. Her initial written statement defending her husband's trading as separate from her legislative work and properly disclosed was immediately shredded on social media, with users posting side-by-side comparisons of Paul's trades and Pelosi's legislative calendar, showing the suspicious timing Trump had highlighted. Her attempt to defend San Francisco by citing complex urban challenges was destroyed by videos her own supporters posted, trying to show the city's beauty but accidentally capturing tents, needles, and feces in the background. Her decision to appear on The View for a friendly interview backfired spectacularly. Even the sympathetic hosts pressed her on the stock trading, and her rambling answers about disclosure requirements and Paul's independence made her look evasive. When Whoopi Goldberg, generally supportive of Democrats, said, "But Nancy, you can understand why people see the timing and think something's wrong, right?" And Pelosi responded with a testy, "No, I don't, because we follow all the rules." It became another viral clip, showing her disconnected from how obvious the corruption looked to regular people. Democratic leadership began quietly, but clearly distancing themselves from her. Hakeem Jeffries, who'd succeeded her as Democratic House leader, gave carefully worded statements supporting stock trading bans to restore public trust, without mentioning Pelosi by name. But everyone understood the subtext. Chuck Schumer said Democrats needed to lead on ethics reform in a statement that amounted to throwing Pelosi under the bus. Other prominent Democrats who'd worked closely with her for years suddenly had scheduling conflicts when asked to appear at events with her. Her attempt to write an op-ed for the San Francisco Chronicle, defending her record representing the city, backfired catastrophically. The piece titled "My Love Letter to San Francisco" talked about the city's resilience and innovation while barely addressing the homelessness crisis, drug epidemic, or public safety concerns. The comments section was brutal. Even Chronicle readers, generally liberal and supportive of Pelosi, tore into her for being out of touch. One comment that got thousands of upvotes: "I stepped in human feces on Market Street yesterday on my way to work." That's your 37-year love letter. The paper's own editorial board published a response the next week, gently suggesting she was too close to see the problems clearly and calling for new leadership with fresh perspectives. 3 months after the debate, Pelosi made the announcement everyone saw coming, but few expected so quickly she would not seek another term as Democratic leader in the House. The statement, delivered at a press conference where she looked older and more tired than anyone had seen her, was framed as passing the torch to a new generation and having accomplished everything she'd set out to do, but everyone understood the real message. Trump had destroyed her credibility so thoroughly that continuing as the face of House Democrats was politically untenable. The press conference itself became news when a reporter asked directly, "Did the debate with President Trump and the subsequent focus on your wealth and your husband's trading influence this decision?" Pelosi's response, "I don't make decisions based on Republican attacks," was transparently false and became another clip showing her inability to acknowledge the obvious. Another reporter asked, What would you say to San Francisco residents who feel you've let the city decline? Her answer about continuing to fight for resources and reform satisfied no one when Trump had shown photos of her $25 million mansion, 3 blocks from tent encampments. Political polling showed dramatic shifts. Did Nancy Pelosi get rich through insider trading? Before debate, 43% believed yes. After debate, 71% believed yes. Did Pelosi's security failures contribute to January 6th? Before debate, 38% believed yes. After debate, 64% believed yes. Is Pelosi out of touch with regular Americans? Before debate, 54% believed yes. After debate, 79% believed yes. The $24,000 Sub-Zero refrigerator became a symbol of Democratic elitism. Republican campaigns across the country used images of Pelosi's ice cream tour in ads about inflation and economic struggles. Pelosi's ice cream became shorthand for politician hypocrisy and tone deafness. Pelosi herself tried damage control, but every attempt backfired. Her statement defending her husband's trading as separate from her work was immediately countered with the timing evidence Trump had shown. Her defense of San Francisco as facing complex challenges was demolished by photos of the streets. Her attempt to explain the refrigerator as just showing my kitchen made her look even more out of touch. 3 months after the debate, Pelosi announced she would not seek another term as Democratic leader in the House. While she framed it as a new generation of leadership, everyone understood the real reason Trump had destroyed her credibility as a voice on corruption, inequality, or public service. She couldn't attack Republicans for enriching themselves when her own $250 million fortune from a government job was now under scrutiny. She couldn't lecture about helping the poor when her $24,000 refrigerator was a national meme. She couldn't claim moral authority when her city was covered in feces. Trump himself experienced a surge in credibility that surprised even his strongest supporters. For years, critics had dismissed his attacks on Democratic corruption as mere rhetoric or personal grievances. The debate changed that calculation by presenting actual evidence stock trades with dates and amounts, photographs of San Francisco's decline, video of the refrigerator moment, Pentagon records about National Guard authorization. He'd proven that his accusations weren't just political attacks, but documented reality. Post-debate polling showed that even voters who disliked Trump personally found his evidence about Pelosi convincing. One focus group of suburban swing voters in Pennsylvania, people who'd voted against Trump in 2020, expressed shock at the stock trading evidence. They'd never heard about it from mainstream media. If that's all true, one participant said, why isn't she in prison? Conservative media figures and Republican politicians studied the debate as a masterclass in how to attack Democratic corruption effectively. The key lesson: bring receipts, not just rhetoric. Trump had made Pelosi defend specific trades with specific dates and amounts. He'd shown photos of her wealth versus her district's decline. He'd played video of her own words and actions. Republicans running in 2024 and 2026 cycles began emulating this approach, creating visual presentations of opponent wealth accumulation, mapping votes to financial gains, documenting lifestyle hypocrisy. Do it like Trump did to Pelosi became shorthand for evidence-based corruption attacks. The debate also shifted cultural conversations about wealth and corruption in ways that benefited Republicans for the first time in years. Democrats had spent decades successfully framing inequality narratives around billionaire greed and corporate corruption, while their own leaders' suspicious wealth accumulation went largely unexamined by friendly media. Trump's evisceration of Pelosi flipped that script. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about billionaires who built businesses, but about career politicians who became multimillionaires on government salaries through insider trading. The contrast between Trump's "I built towers and created jobs" versus Pelosi's unexplained $250 million resonated with voters tired of being lectured about greed by people who'd gotten rich off taxpayer money. Insider information. 1 year after the debate, Nancy Pelosi had effectively disappeared from national political discourse. She still technically represented San Francisco in Congress, but she'd lost her leadership position, her media presence had collapsed, and her credibility on any corruption or ethics issue was destroyed. When she did occasionally appear on friendly news programs, the hosts would carefully avoid asking about her wealth or her husband's trading, an omission so obvious that it became another running joke in conservative media about how even her allies couldn't defend her against Trump's evidence. The debate became required viewing in political science courses, but not as an example of policy discussion, as a case study in how documented evidence deployed effectively can destroy even the most entrenched political figure's credibility in a single evening. Law schools used it to teach about the importance of evidence presentation. Business schools analyzed Trump's technique of comparing wealth creation versus wealth extraction. Communication departments studied how he'd used visual evidence and specific numbers to make complex corruption simple and undeniable to average viewers. More importantly, the debate fundamentally altered how Americans viewed the question, how did they get so rich about career politicians? Before, such questions were dismissed as conspiracy theories or partisan attacks. After watching Trump systematically document Pelosi's wealth accumulation with trading records, property values, and timeline correlations, millions of Americans started asking the same questions about other long-serving politicians. Why is this senator worth $50 million? How did that congresswoman afford 3 homes? Where did their spouses' perfectly timed trades come from? Trump had normalized skepticism about politician wealth in a way that no think tank, report, or investigative journalism piece ever could, showing the receipts on live television in a format anyone could understand. This wasn't a debate about policy or ideology. This was a confrontation between 2 types of people: those who build wealth by creating value, and those who extract wealth by exploiting position. Donald Trump built an empire by constructing buildings, creating jobs, and generating real economic value. Love him or hate him, his billions came from projects you can see: towers in Manhattan, hotels in Chicago, golf courses around the world. He created wealth through construction, development, and branding. He employed thousands of people. He paid taxes on profits from actual business operations. His wealth came from the market, people choosing to stay at his hotels, buy his properties, or license his name. That's capitalism. That's wealth creation. Nancy Pelosi spent 37 years in government, making a modest salary, and somehow became worth $250 million. Her husband made suspiciously timed stock trades that earned millions, perfectly correlating with her legislative work. Her city declined into homeless camps and human feces, while she lived in a $25 million mansion behind walls. She blocked reforms that would prevent the obvious conflicts of interest her family benefited from. She showed off $24,000 refrigerators and $12 ice cream, while small businesses died under lockdowns she promoted. She extracted wealth through position, insider knowledge, and systematic exploitation of her office. That's not public service. That's corruption with good PR. For 90 minutes, Trump held up a mirror to show America what career politician corruption looks like. Not abstract corruption, not theoretical conflicts, actual documented insider trading with specific dates and dollar amounts. Actual photos of San Francisco's decline versus her mansion. Actual video of her showing off luxury during lockdowns. Actual records of her rejecting security before January 6th, then blaming others. The receipts were undeniable. Paul Pelosi's $62 million in options trading. Documented Visa stock purchase before legislation died. Documented San Francisco's 28,000 poop reports. Documented by the city's own app. $24,000 refrigerator and $12 ice cream. Her own video. January 6th, National Guard authorization. Pentagon records. All facts. All proven. All available for verification. Pelosi spent decades building an image as a champion of working families and defender of democratic norms. Trump destroyed that image in 90 minutes by showing the receipts on how she got rich while her constituents suffered, how she lived in luxury while her city declined, how she had security while denying it to others. The billionaire beat the career politician by doing what he does best, showing the numbers, pointing to results, and making the corruption so obvious that even her defenders struggled to spin it away. If you think Nancy Pelosi should explain how she got $250 million rich on a government salary, share this story, comment insider trading. If you think Paul Pelosi's suspiciously timed stock trades should be investigated, because Trump just showed America the receipts and the numbers. Don't lie by.